3, 2.
I think it's stacked right.
Welcome to the October 13th, 2021 Planning Board meeting for the Town of Raymond. The Planning Board will come to order. The board does have a quorum, and we'll start with roll call. Mike D'Arcangelo,
Greg Foster.
Robert O'Neill,
Ed Kranich. Mark Childs.
Kevin Whitbread.
This is a public proceeding, and unless the board specifically votes to go into executive session, you have the right to hear everything that is being said and to look at all the exhibits that are presented. Please notify the chair if you are unable to see or hear. The board works from a published agenda and will be considering tonight's items in the following order. The only thing actually is is approval of minutes, and then the old business is a tabled item for the solar project. In each instance, the burden is upon the applicant to demonstrate compliance with the provisions of the applicable ordinances or state law. All persons speaking, including representatives of the applicant and members of the public, are asked to stand at the microphone and state their name, address, and affiliation with the application. All persons speaking shall address the chair. Any conversations must be held in abeyance until after the board has formally adjourned. After the board votes on the merits of each application, it will prepare a written notice of decision. Because the notice of decision may substantially affect any appeals rights, and also as a matter of courtesy, the board asks that those attending the meeting with regard to a specific application not leave until the board has completed its discussion. Appeals from adverse decisions must be filed with the Superior Court or as otherwise provided by law within 45 days of this board's decision. Also, to be certain that you preserve your individual right to file any such appeal, you must be certain that the board records evidence of your appearance this evening in opposition and the basis of your opposition. Okay. So first, let's start off with Mark. Welcome to the board. Thank you for volunteering.
Good. Thank you for having me.
We're back up to full strength. And our first order of business is approval of minutes for July 30th, August 8th, and September 8th of 2021. I think we could do this all in one shot unless there's objections.
August 11th on, I think it's the third page in, maybe the fourth page. It says, my question of lot size requirements per page 128 of the ordinance, land use ordinance. After discussion, it was determined the lot size were permitted, and this was the issue about the lots were .47 on the Boulder Bend subdivision. I don't think we determined that they were permitted in the village residential zone at .47. I believe we had some discussion, but I don't think we made that determination. I think it was the first time a lot of us had that page.
Correct.
And so there was some discussion, and my thought was that Dustin Roma was going to sort of check and see if there was any other language that might make this particular language not applicable, but I haven't found any.
Well, I think you did. Didn't you go back, Jim? Didn't you go back and recalculate? Wasn't that the recalculation that?
No, the plan that was submitted today by email
Right.
still has two lots
I
at
didn't look at that
.47.
one. Okay.
And also, well, it's another issue, but anyway.
All right. So how would you? Could you give us? Did you work on
Well, I would rather have language saying that the, after discussion, it was left that perhaps those lots are, in fact, need to be 1/2 acre, that all lots need to be at least a 1/2 acre.
Oh. Was that a yes? You got that, Sandy?
Got it.
Okay.
I can fix that.
All right. And is there something else, Mike? Or?
Right.
You have something else?
No.
Okay.
I have another question on the same page. Second paragraph up from the bottom. Let's see. Jim confirms stating electric running from Webb's Mills Road to the utility easement. 3-phase underground would be very intensive. Was that expensive?
Expensive.
Expensive.
Okay.
Expensive.
All right, so we just got to correct that word.
Yep.
Okay, intensive.
It is intensive.
Yeah.
But it was expensive.
It is sounds the same, so.
Yeah, no. When we have masks on, it's probably not very clear either.
True.
Anything else? Is there a motion to approve?
A motion to approve with the two corrections noted.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Mark, we're going to log you in as an abstention because you have to actually be at the meeting in order to be able to vote it for the minutes.
Okay.
Okay, next item is our table item for the solar project. Before we get going, just for you guys, the board does not accept anything that comes in, certainly not the day before. And we have modified that to like a week or 2 weeks before, but it is a volunteer board. Some of us have other things to do during the day, and we do not have an adequate amount of time to review any submission that we would actually have wound up getting this morning. I am comfortable with proceeding as long as there is, I know you probably would like approval if that's the goal, but as long as there is nothing in that package that requires the board to act on this, then I would be fine with proceeding with it. But if there is things that you are going to reference that are in that package that the board has required, then we are just going to not get anywhere, and there's no reason to take it off the table.
I think, let's proceed.
Okay, so you can proceed.
Yes, because we had submitted a package within the time frame already.
Correct.
So
May I
that's
have your attention? When speaking,
Oh,
please
Oh.
keep your close proximity.
My fault.
Thank you.
Sorry, Alexa.
Wow.
Okay, there you go. I'm sorry.
Yep.
Yep.
Okay, so, yeah, maybe I'll just start over.
Yeah.
Introduce yourself, please.
Yeah, just
My name's Chris Spires. I work for VRI Environmental, and
I'm Dale Knapp with VRI Environmental. Colin Saxon with Waivers Solar.
Thank you.
great. So, yeah, I think it would be great to proceed. We had submitted that initial package of materials that is definitely something we want to talk about.
Okay.
What we provided yesterday in some ways meets many of the some of the conditions that Jim had outlined in his memo, and maybe was, oh, that one's not working. I don't know if that was on or not. Okay. Okay. So, they are very minor. Like, for example, we provided an auto turn detail for Wayne. A lot of this has been working with the fire department, and Wayne and I can speak to that. We've had multiple meetings, along with Bruce, where we needed to extend the hammerheads about 6 feet so that the truck wouldn't hang out over. So that caused a redo of the entire stormwater design. But we added, 30 square feet of impervious surface. So I think it's definitely worth talking about. We're just trying to be thorough and make sure that you guys have current plans as a supplement. But I completely get it. You're not sitting around just waiting for our materials, twiddling your fingers all hours of the day. So,
are you looking for approval this evening?
Jim, did you want to talk?
Yeah, I think with the plans that we had prior to the one you got today or yesterday, that we'll do our review based on that, and whatever comes out of that. There may be supplemental answers that we have, but we haven't had a chance to look at it. If they were suggested conditions, we'll keep them as conditions. The answers may be here, but I think we proceed based on what you had in the original packet for this meeting. And I think you'll find that that's likely enough for you to go in a certain direction, but I'm not going to say that until you guys have had your Q&A with the applicant.
Right, but I didn't get my question answered though. Are you looking for final approval this evening?
We are.
Okay. That was my question.
It's a simple yes or no.
Yeah,
right?
it's simple yes or no, but
Sorry,
I know you
I
guys.
thought that was obvious.
Okay. So, everybody okay
Yes.
with proceeding with that? Yeah. Okay, so we would need a motion to remove from the table.
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor? Mark, this you can vote on.
I can vote.
Yes, you can vote on this one.
I was here for the meeting, I know that, but not here, but.
You're good to go now on everything.
Actually, that's an important point, that he has reviewed the material and he is prepared to.
Yes.
Because
And
he's
he has
in the
been
middle of this,
correct.
so it is an important statement to go in the record that he has reviewed the previous
Absolutely.
material and he's prepared to discuss this evening. Yep.
Okay, so it is off the table. We'll start with Jim.
Okay, you did receive a packet weeks ago for this, which was in response to our last meeting. Within that, I think the biggest issue that was probably out there hanging in the wind is two. One is they're applying for a stormwater or site location permit with the DEP, which the biggest component of that we would have issue with would be the stormwater. And typically we defer that review to the DEP. The second part of that, which I will defer to Wayne, had to deal with some fire suppression and some access issues. Other than that, I don't think we had a whole lot of questions on the plan at this point. But I think Wayne's changes probably had the biggest impact, which weren't very big. But Wayne, I'll let you go through and discuss what you had or what was addressed with regards to fire suppression. I know we had a cistern, and then I think we had some turnarounds you had some concerns about.
Yep. So, just like Jim said, location of the cistern. The question that we've been working on was ownership, maintenance, those types of issues. Street address signage, the hammerhead turnarounds, making sure that the fire truck could turn around in the hammerheads. Those are, and the extension, they extended the right-of-way up to the farthest northern extent of the project for fire department access with an additional hammerhead at that end. So those are the issues that we've been working with the engineers on this project.
Okay. So you're all happy with everything?
Yeah, I don't know. I would be happy, and the chief would be happy, as long as these items that we've come to some final agreements on since the application was turned in are part of the conditions of approval.
Wasn't there a cistern discussion?
Yep, a 10,000 gallon cistern will be located inside the main gate for the complex, where the start of the solar panels are. A number of hammerhead turnarounds, a couple of bypass lanes because of the length of the road going in there. So those things are all included on the plan.
Okay, and the maintenance of the cistern?
The maintenance, the fire department will do its normal annual maintenance and testing. Basically, we test to make sure that, one, that it's working properly and it's not leaking. If we find issues, we'll let the folks know, and then they'll be responsible for fixing it.
Okay.
And just as a matter of order, you do have some waivers. I don't recall us taking, I think we did a straw poll, but we'll have to take a formal action on those waivers as well.
Do we have them in writing?
They did in the initial application, which was the first packet you
Really?
received from them.
Okay.
But I think we ruled that two of them were really not applicable. I think the only one that is applicable is the overhead power.
Right.
And so what will happen is when that waiver is granted, that'll be on the final plan. The other piece of this is obviously the private road needs to be recorded, and I was looking for a note on the plan that said that no further residential development will be allowed unless it comes back to the board because of the way the road was built.
Okay.
So with that, I've got the applicant, Q&A if you want.
You're up.
Great. I concur with what Wayne talked about, that a lot of this back and forth that we've been doing is making sure that that the fire department was comfortable with a lot of the features that we baked into the plan. So just to point out some of the things Wayne was talking about. Yes.
Could I stop you just for 1
Yeah.
second? Kevin, can you see, do you have these plans, or do you have, can you see what's going on here?
I do have the plans, yes.
Okay, all right.
Can you see where I'm pointing when I
No.
do this?
No, I can't see that.
Okay, all right. I didn't know if that camera was like zoomed in.
Well,
on me.
I think we can, that's the point. But
Yeah, okay.
Probably tough to see.
Yep, okay, so, anyway, our previous road ended around halfway. This is the added extension here, going all the way to the northern terminus. And then we also did perform an auto turn study, and Wayne provided us with the dimensions of, I think, your largest fire truck.
Right.
So, in the wheelbase and the turning radius, and, we found, we should really extend the hammerhead about 6 feet so the bumper doesn't hang over the side and hit a snowbank or something. So there were some minor changes that we made, but otherwise it worked. And we did it not just for the hammerhead turnarounds, but for the entire road itself, just to make sure it could make all the twists and turns. So no issue there. There was a minor, update to the hammerhead size and the radius on the site plan. I guess we'll need to maybe add that note, Jim, about no further residential development without coming back to the planning board. Not a problem. But in reviewing your memo, Jim, it seemed that a lot of these issues that what you were looking for from Wayne, we're probably even further ahead
You are.
in that on the memo.
Right.
That, as you indicated, we're already in a good position to say we've got a good working relationship with the fire department, and I have no doubt that we'll get on the same page. A lot of it's just Wayne is busy, we're busy, and making time to meet just takes time. So I appreciate your help in this, Wayne, and it's been good working with you.
And yours as well.
Yeah. We do have an E911 address on there. Kayla was able to assign that to us. So it's 37 Dens Drive. We decided to just keep it the same road name, to not say it's a private road off of a private road, just to keep it simple. I don't know who came up with that simple idea, but somebody smarter than me had come up with that.
so you have an address for that now on Dens Road?
It's assigned, but nothing's, no plans have been recorded. The private way plan hasn't been recorded or anything.
Okay.
But we obtained that just
Right.
to show, hey, here's what it is, and that is on the site plan here that says 37 Dens Drive.
Okay.
So again, proposed, not recorded. And then just to reiterate about the cistern, it is our understanding that, the project will take on the construction cost, the procurement of materials. They'll build it. Prior to the actually commencement of the procurement, Wayne's going to have his final blessing on the cistern design. So we have somewhat of a conceptual plan in there. He's provided us with details, but in case, the manufacturer wants to change it, they don't offer that one anymore, they get the last look at the cistern design prior to getting our fire permit, in addition to the building permit. So, we're going to leave it in Wayne's court. And then once that's constructed, obviously, if there's any sort of a commissioning process, the fire department will be a part of that, make sure they can draw from it, that it, paths, pressure tests, whatnot. And if anything breaks after your annual maintenance or needs to be remedied, that's on the project and not on the fire department. At one point, we were discussing, turning it over to the town, whatever. This became too complicated, so we said, why don't we just take it on? We'll take on the risk, make it easy. And now it's basically treated like any other cistern in town that you have on the long list of maybe like a dozen or so, 15 cisterns. This one is just added to that list for the annual maintenance.
Okay.
And I think the idea is that this is a cistern that's dedicated as a resource for the project. Certainly, if you wanted to drive up the road and draw from it in an emergency, great. But the idea was that this is dedicated for this project. I think, yeah, Jim.
We had one, I know John's here, but I know from the site walk and from the previous meeting, one of the other questions we had is the noise from the trackers.
Sure.
And I had hoped you guys would have an answer for us on
I do.
that. Okay.
Yeah, so the trackers are, so the site law application talks about this, right? So DEP cares about this. So we already know that the transformer produces 63 decibels at 10 meters. Okay, and so the tracker motors themselves will be 63 decibels at 1 meter. So therefore they are, it's exponential. The further you get away from something, that it's not just linear. So they're going to be quieter than the transformer. And in terms of, how often are the motors running, they usually run about a few seconds every 15 minutes. So they make an incremental shift. They wait 15 minutes, then they make another incremental shift. They all work at the same time. It's not like kind of a wave effect. So all the trackers are designed to work together. Twice per day, they may, at certain times of the year, like during the winter, they may kind of go into stow mode to dump any snow that's on them and then go back. That process would only take 2 minutes. Wow. And then at the end of the day, they say the sun went down, they reset, and then they faced east, ready to receive the sun the next day. So I did the math, and I think it's about 15 minutes total of operation when you add up all those little every 15-minute increments and the stow mode. So it's really not running that much. And again, the transformer is louder, and already we've shown that that doesn't have any impact to sound to abutting properties.
The sound for the motors is the sum of all the motors, right? It's not each individual one.
That's correct.
Can I ask, maybe you can help me understand, 63 decibels, I have no idea how loud.
Sure, that's probably about equivalent to a pad-mounted residential air conditioner outside your house. That kind of a sound, or maybe a couple heat pumps that are exterior mounted when they're running pretty loud with fans. Yeah.
Like
Sure.
normal conversation in a room is between 60 and 70 decibels.
Yeah.
So, well, depending on your sound system, I guess. But, normal conversation is about
When speaking,
between
please keep a close proximity.
Or speak a little louder.
Right on cue, sorry. So normal conversation is between 60 and 70 decibels if you're sort of talking close to somebody. So it's a pretty low level of sound. It's not like a lawnmower, it's not like traffic. It would be basically it'd be basically imperceptible at the project boundary, which is what we have to demonstrate to DEP's compliance with that. And I think their limit's about 30 dBA at a property line, which is very quiet.
33 dBA?
63. It's the
The limit.
Oh yes,
The time limit.
yes, yeah.
Let me make sure.
I would guess that there are maybe like 10 motors on a project of this size. We're not quite to that design yet, but it's not like there are hundreds, one for each row. They oftentimes will share the responsibility through like a drive shaft to move a bunch of different racks at the same time.
Do we have other questions?
Can you describe the fence? I'm not sure if there's a detail for it. But,
Oh, sure.
What is it, 6 by 6 cattle fence?
It's, yep, here's a picture of it in the bottom left. Right there. So it's an agricultural style fence. I think it's about a 12 gauge mesh. It's designed actually to keep out bison. It has that amount of strength to it. There's like an image of the animals it keeps out, and bison's the biggest one.
We don't have any of those.
Yeah, just a few. Well, yeah, I think that's equivalent, right?
Yeah, probably.
Although I don't know that you're going to stop a moose from walking through this thing.
Yeah, I would be more concerned about kids.
Kids are
going
not
looking for vandalism or
Sure.
just exploring. Which I worked on projects like with substations, and that was something that we were always dealing with. Kids would either vandalize or they would want to get in. How tall is this fence?
It has to be minimum 7 feet, but it's probably going to end up being 8, just because that's the width of the mesh that it comes in for most manufacturers.
Mm-hmm.
So it's it's wooden posts that have a 20-year warranty to them, and it's a galvanized mesh that's stapled to the posts. So it meets NEC code, and the reason we prefer this versus chain link is it just looks better.
All right, well, if it's NEC code for these installations.
It is. It meets that. It's actually the only kind of fence that I have ever installed on projects in New England. It's just far more preferable.
Okay.
Yep.
And Chris, how often do you inspect the property?
It's minimal. A technician may visit the project maybe 3 to 4 times a year, maybe quarterly. Certainly there's reactive maintenance, so there's a remote monitoring system. It's called a data acquisition system. It's uploading information through a cell modem that's located on site. So there's like a Verizon plan that it beams data wirelessly, and that also triggers any sort of alerts that happen to the asset management company. And there's a person that's actually responsible at all times during the day to respond to an alert if it's an emergency. In terms of routine maintenance, Jim, it's maybe quarterly. We're not supposed to mow the project, the grass, more than twice per year per the DEP in order for the grass to count as a meadow buffer. So it's pretty minimal. Yeah. Yep.
But I think, yeah, I got the mic. You know, so while it may be physically inspected quarterly, it's monitored constantly.
24/7.
And so that's for faults, any change in power production during the day, and they'll dispatch a local technician if there's an issue on the project quickly.
Scott, who's responsible for managing winter conditions for the road and just the access
Right.
for the fire department?
The project is, not the town. Yeah.
What's the frequency that's gonna say, you know, we're have 3 storms in a row? What's the frequency of managing that?
I don't know if it's as much about frequency, but as in order to keep the road open so that it can be open for emergency personnel. So it's more about keeping it at a certain standard.
That's
versus-
right. That's
yeah.
what I mean, like per storm or 3 times per storm. Who's gonna be assigned to that? Do you have a
Contract.
Yeah,
contractor with that?
so there's a whole team that's the asset management team, right?
Right.
So, you know, there's the developers, then there's the contractors, and then there's the asset management division of the company, and it's their job to make that call. So they will contract with like a local contractor, and there's always a judgment call about, you know, if it's 1 inch and then it's going to be sunny the next day, you probably don't want to plow it, especially if the ground isn't frozen. So they'll just make that call just like we all typically do for our own driveways, but it's to keep in mind what Wayne's needs are.
Right.
We don't want to have him driving in on, you know, 8 inches of snow because I was able to get my pickup in, no problem, but that's not great for fire department. So the idea is to make sure that it's open and accessible to emergency services personnel.
Good, so I'm going to piggyback off that, Mark, and ask John. John, are you the only resident on Den Drive?
He's not on Dan's Drive.
He's
You're
up
not
here.
on that.
He's up here, right here.
He's the he's probably the closest abutter that would have a visual and noise impact though.
Okay, so didn't we just walk past a barn that was on Den's Drive when we did the site walk?
Walked by Dennis's barn.
Dennis's house.
His house, he used to have a barn.
Oh, okay, okay, the barn's gone, right. Okay,
And there's a resident near Route 85.
Right.
At the beginning.
so I guess what I'm leading down to is, do we need, I mean, on any of these projects, we normally have a road association agreement on maintaining the road.
There will be, because you have 2 parties involved.
Right.
You have the solar party, plus you have the original landowner
Yep.
who utilizes this, and then you have one other landowner, I can't remember the name of them, down on the corner there.
Christopher Madura.
Yeah.
So are we going to
They
do
have
that?
access off of that as well. They have the first right when you go in. Then you've got the existing house, and then you'll have the solar farm. So they will have to be,
So we're going to need an agreement between,
there'll have to be an agreement, and that'll be executed as part of a condition.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
We're neighbors. We'll come, yeah,
Yeah.
not a problem.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay,
So before any permits are issued, we'll have to have proof that that has been recorded or notarized or something.
right,
That's part of the private road standards.
okay. Okay. What else? What other, let's go through, surface water drainage, we had an issue with last time. Is that, stormwater management?
That, they did supply us with the computations. DEP is reviewing that as part of the site location, and we're deferring to the DEP because it will have, I believe, a phosphorus standard involved. But again, the only thing that the DEP and that we are concerned with is really the runoff from the access road, because everything else is vegetated.
Right.
So I have less concern than I would with normal stormwater permit, and they've provided details of how that's going to be handled through buffers, and I really don't have any issues with it, but we have to make it a condition subject to the DEP approval.
Okay.
But again, that's the only thing the DEP is looking at, other than noise on this particular thing, because I won't say it's an expedited review, but the DEP process is much more streamlined for these applications than they are for other developments.
It'll really be down to stormwater, since there's no regulated natural resource impact on this, and in terms of noise and visual impact, obviously we've submitted materials that show full compliance with the standards under site law. So it's really a stormwater exercise, which based on Steve Blake's work, we shouldn't have an issue complying with Chapter 500.
So for you guys and for the board, and Jimmy, if you could weigh in here, we have never given, in the last many years, final approval with a DEP waiver. I mean, I can see this is a little bit of a different situation, but it is, in fact, we would be deviating from what we have done. I would just be concerned with, unless we can somehow sector it out, we would be setting the precedence that we're going to start accepting the applications for final approval without DEP.
Yeah, and they have, provided us deep sets of computations and everything.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have any problem with what they, with that it's almost guaranteed DEP. I just have the problem, well, not so much a problem, but I just have a concern that that's different from how we've done everything else.
Can I ask, as a board, if we do that, are we obligated to continue doing that?
No, I don't see why we are. And that's why I would like to, if we could somehow define it very narrowly as to why we are moving forward with it. It would be beneficial than just saying DEP, the stormwater is going to be a condition of approval.
Well,
We would be, I guess we're even maybe looking for a higher bar than that. While stormwater may be DEP's, what they're going to focus on, we filed I don't know, maybe 12 of these in the last couple of years, these site law applications. We would be comfortable with language that would say approval, your approval is contingent upon the SLOTA application approval, the entire application, not just stormwater review by DEP.
and we would have that anyway because we have a standard in our site plan ordinance that we have to procure all state, federal permits anyway. So whether it be a wetland or anything like that, we'd have to have proof that it didn't alter the design.
Right.
But from a stormwater perspective, I've seen it. I've seen the update too. I mean, I'm comfortable with the stormwater as they presented it. They meets all of they follow the DEP standard essentially. And even though the DEP hasn't approved it, we have evidence that,
So how would that be different from any other project that's looking for approval with DEP?
it doesn't. I mean, that's just because we do have that standard in there
Right.
that you have to procure all federal, state, and blah, blah, blah. But I know there have been cases where we have done that subject to DEP, but, we always, and it could be, you could make it subject to DEP approval upon there being no substantial changes to the design.
Which is what we used to do until we
Right.
changed.
Right. So it's up to you. I mean, typically, I would like to see, and I don't know how close you are to getting that in writing, or at least, typically, we'd like to see some kind of communication, at least from the DEP, that they're on their way.
We haven't filed it yet. So what we have done though is consulted with DEP and gotten their buy-in that they also see this as a low impact and a low risk project. Probably more changes came out of the site plan just with the town than what the DEP would ask of us.
And that's not the issue.
Sure. Maybe a little bit of color on some of what's driving this kind of atypical process would help the board kind of grasp why we're here, kind of out of the typical sequence. So typically what we like to do is we like to go to the state, file the site law application, come to the municipality, get that permitting process underway. When the site law permit is granted, we're here for final approval and everything works very smoothly. So the Public Utilities Commission has changed sort of the standards as how a lot of these projects are reviewed, and they're requiring a municipal approval first. So the main PUC has kind of flipped process on us for solar. And so part of the problem we're facing here is getting through the municipal process in a way that we're not used to, neither are towns. And so I think, typically we'd take the approach where we would move forward just as you described, because that's just kind of how we do business as consultants and how planning boards do business as a regulatory body. But the Maine Public Utilities Commission has sort of stepped into regulation a little bit and made it complicated for municipalities, for developers, as well as the DEP. And so that's one of the reasons why we're having to approach this a little bit differently, because I guess they've changed the framework or the process on us and everybody else. And so that's one of the reasons why this is being faced by a lot of towns.
Does the Utilities Commission hold off on or stop the SLOTA application until they see the local approval?
No, it's
even worse.
it's really complicated because they don't actually have regulatory authority over the build of the project. It's part of injecting the power. So they're regulating how you get into sort of, we probably don't have time to dive too deep into this. So I said to say that we understand where you're coming from and we would prefer to do it that way as well, but the Utilities Commission has sort of changed how you qualify projects. It's forcing us to take a different approach, specifically with solar projects.
Okay.
And it's
Well, that helps.
Yeah,
That helps a lot.
And so totally understand where you're coming from, but for solar projects specifically, there's a new regulatory framework in place that kind of changes what we would traditionally take as a standard approach.
Okay.
Thanks, Chris.
Okay, I think that's, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, I think that gives us
Very
something.
It's actually makes it unique really only in the next few months, just because of this whole kind of weird little pocket of time.
Right.
It's not like, oh, every year you'll be faced with this by the end of the year. This is a prior to December 31st sort of push of what they're looking for.
So can I ask a question of procedures then?
Go ahead.
If we grant approval, condition 2, could we hold out on signing at least the site plan until we had the DEP approval to make sure that there were no changes? We have 2 signature documents. We have the private road and we have the site plan.
Right.
If we grant approval, they have approval, but we will hold off on signing and releasing that plan until we have the DEP. Does that work?
I think all we were looking for is sufficient documentation.
Because we
of
would
having
do a
approval.
findings of fact.
Great.
That's it.
If you have a findings of fact that has some sort of date on it,
Right.
I believe that is all that you need, right, Colin?
Yep.
Yeah. So we're totally, yeah, we don't need the Mylar, we don't need the full suite, the
Right.
Mylar sign and all that. But if we had the findings of fact, Jim, yeah, that's
The
great.
problem is that I worry about that though, is if it takes 6 months to get the approval, we're all gonna forget.
Right.
So it may be just as easy, put the condition right on the plan before we sign it, so that Alex or whoever's releasing permits understands he can't release it till there is that state approval.
It would just simply be the SLOTA permit and the road.
Well, the plan and profile, or the road plan, we could approve because that's not being held, yeah. So I mean, that has to be recorded in a certain number of days
It's only
anyway.
SLOTA then.
It's just the SLOTA, right? So
And that's pretty comprehensive. They look at everything.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And like I said, I've gone through the stormwater, and it appears to me that they're not gonna have any issues getting that approved from the DEP. And there's 2 ways we could do that, I mean, but still, regardless of who's reviewing the storm, whether it's us or the DEP, there's a section in our ordinance that requires us to retain all state and federal permits, so
Right.
it's an outlier either way, so. So I think from a stormwater component, I'm comfortable with the design. I just think that regardless, we need to have that note on there that they need their SLOTA approval prior to any construction.
Right. And I think the uniqueness, I would think it's justification.
I don't.
You do? Of course. What wouldn't? Yeah. Mark, I know you're new, I don't put you on the spot, but you.
No, I'm just taking it all in.
Okay.
Just thinking about it. I agree with moving forward with approval, but, there's a comma, but, I don't want to set a precedent.
Right.
That's the only thing that another project comes up and it's gonna be pointed. They're like, oh, wait, no, this was
Yeah.
approved before, so that's
my concern as well.
Yeah, and I think you can make it part of your motion due to the uniqueness of the PUC regulatory
We
issues.
can get that in, yeah.
I think you put that in there. That makes it a unique approval versus just a standout blank, yeah, we just do this all the time. You know, I
Right.
think you can say, because of the uniqueness of the PUC application and the applicant's situation, you know, we abide that we will grant this with a condition.
Kevin, what do you think? You still awake?
I agree with what Jim was saying.
Okay. All right, so I think we passed that. Why do I have special features starred from our discussion? Do we,
The tree, the same.
oh, snowmobiles and land vehicles, ATV uses, okay. That's not that.
And I know that we've closed public comment, but I do know we do have an abutter here, and it,
Yeah, we've already listened to him once, we don't need to listen to him again, do we?
I tried, John.
It's not a public hearing, John, but as long as there's no objection from the applicant, which I doubt there would be, if you have something,
No objection from this abutter. We did get a note that it was a public hearing, but
really?
that happened last time.
Yep. But are you okay, I mean, and seriously, has everything worked out that you had issues
The
with?
issues we are in good shape and.
Go to the mic.
Oh, sorry, John. You gotta stop.
Oh, how come you didn't get elected?
Folks,
We're all terrible.
Yeah, us included.
we met with Blue Wave in the recent days, and there'll be some notations, I believe, on the plan relative to our concerns about a buffer, and we've totally resolved those and have language I think that'll be acceptable to the board, certainly acceptable to us and to Blue Wave.
Okay. Thanks, John. So what's left? Anything else? Any other concerns?
Not for me.
Jim?
I think we have some conditions that we just want to make sure we've got clarity on, but you've got 3 things. We got to vote on the waiver for underground.
Right.
We got to vote for the approval of the private road, and then you've got the approval of the site plan with conditions. And the private road and the site plan kind of lumped together, but I just do that 2 separate approvals because they're going to be 2 separate documents. The private way will be recorded.
And when you're talking about the private road, you're talking about the road agreement, association agreement of some
Correct.
sort, right?
Yep, that would be the condition on that, which is not anything on the plan, but it's just part of the overall approval process.
Okay. And for the DEP condition,
Yeah, I think you want to make...
we want to make
You want
that,
to wordsmith that such that it is a unique situation due to the PUC regulations that the applicant is under. However you want to word that, but
Yeah, I
something of
know.
that nature, that it's specific to a condition that is regulated by the state.
the order of events or something, right?
Yeah. Due to the sequence of permitting under the PUC, you know, the town will oblige by granting a condition of approval for the SLOTA.
Okay. Let's take the easy one first, because we already have that waiver in the,
Right.
in here.
Yeah. It was in the very first one, and I don't have my booklet with me, so I think there was a section in that first application you had where you had listed out the waivers, and it was at, I think it was near the end.
Is it near the end? You guys remember? Construction schedule.
Was it in the cover letter?
I don't think, you know, I just don't remember seeing it, but it's not that it,
I do recall seeing it, and I wish I brought my...
It was in the original
So
submission.
it's in section A, the first one, page 9. It's, you find, it looks like this. Oh, sorry, it's, yeah,
oh, okay, got it.
right before the tab B.
Yep.
So it looks like it's trees and then
Yeah, I don't think we've ever enforced the tree one, and I think it's just the underground. I think we just found the other one's not applicable.
Okay. So it's the second bullet. Is there a motion to approve the waiver as requested?
So moved.
Second?
Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor of approving the waiver for the installation of above-ground electrical lines? All those in favor? Kevin?
Aye.
Okay, done. All right, so that's the waiver. Okay, so now we have the approval of the project. We have to go through this before.
Private road.
Yeah, but we have to go through, make sure we've done this thing, the standards. Unless there's objection to the board, I'm going to link all of this into one instead of doing it individually. Does that sound all right? I think the nature of the project. Okay. So the board is, I move that the board finds the project is compliant with Article 10, Section E, Alpha, the preservation of landscaping, Bravo, the relationship to proposed buildings to the environment, Charlie, the vehicular access, Delta, parking and circulation, Echo, surface water drainage, with the exception of pending DEP approval, which will be addressed as a condition. This one. Foxtrot, the utilities, where we have granted a waiver for underground. Gulf, there are no special features. Hotel exterior lighting. I, emergency vehicular access. J, landscaping. Kilo, other considerations under Article 9 of the standards, which we have met. Okay. So,
So for
let's just-
conditions,
Conditions.
one, I would make a point that they would be compliant with Wayne's memo.
Right.
Two would be, as you mentioned, the DEP approval. Three would be a maintenance agreement for the private road.
Right.
And then four is, I requested a note on the plan that no further residential development will be allowed unless they come back to the board.
Right. And for the record, I will only add under your condition number 2, DEP, that the DEP condition is granted due to the unique situation of solar project applications in accordance with, is it PUC? Is that what you
The
said?
main PUC.
PUC regulations.
And we'll dress that up with the findings as well.
Okay, perfect. All right, is there a second?
Second?
Can I ask about number 4, Jim? Was
Yep.
what?
It was no further residential development will be allowed on the private road unless they come back to the town, because they just have enough frontage for this use. If they want to do a residential development, they'll have to extend that and come back to the board.
Gotcha, thanks.
Any other discussion? Kevin, you okay?
Okay.
All right. All those in favor? Kevin? Okay. Unanimous, passed.
Thank you.
Done, guys. Thank you.
So the way we'll work this is, I will review this now to look for the conditions, but we'll get back to you. Maybe we can clean some of those up. The next meeting we'll have a draft findings of fact that the board will review and sign.
We appreciate your flexibility, and Jim, if you need a hand kind of outlining the specific circumstances regarding the PUC timelines, we can give you some detail to really make it abundantly clear in the findings of fact that this is
Yeah, if you could
not
put that,
something we'll see again, but an
Yeah,
email or
if you
something
could
to
email that to us, that would be
if you
really
could
helpful.
email that to Sandy, that would be great, so we have it
We
on the record.
appreciate that.
Yeah, because it just, it's a, kind of a once-in-a-lifetime circumstance, and so I think you can really clearly start it there and make it, clear to anybody down the road that this is a one-time kind of deal.
Good, thank you.
We hope it is too.
Yeah.
I don't like doing it this way either.
All right. Plan communications. You guys okay? Do you need us for anything else?
The other thing too is that we will need a Mylar for the next meeting so we can sign the private road agreement to get that recorded as well. We'll need a, well, I don't know if we need a Mylar anymore.
You don't need a Mylar.
I don't think we need a Mylar, we need a paper copy now.
Right.
Oh, you don't need a Mylar?
The registry doesn't take Mylars anymore, they take paper copies.
Oh, Cumberland doesn't?
No.
Okay. Okay, yeah, so we'll put a block on there as well. If you're,
Yep.
I don't know if that's on there yet.
Yeah, we will need a block, and we just make sure that we have all the notes and everything, but I'll work through that with you guys.
Okay, yeah, we'll touch base.
Yep.
Thanks,
'Cause we'll
really
need
appreciate it.
We'll want the conditions on both the site plan and the private road plan, just so they're,
Okay, sure.
Yep.
They're identical?
yeah.
Yeah, all right,
And we'll get you the list of conditions as well.
thanks.
So we can put those right on the plan.
Thank you very much.
Oh, you're welcome. Okay, just to start, thanks for everyone that responded for our legal training. I'm not sure, Mark, you even got that.
I did.
Okay, good.
Yep, I did.
So we have that set for November. If you have specific questions that you would like for guidance from the legal, email them to Sandy and she will get them to the lawyer for us. Other than that, it'll be, the same. I just thought this time that we had a little refresher. Mark's joined us. It's been probably about 2 years, year and a half since we got the legal here. It's always good to kind of get a little update.
Absolutely.
So that is November. We also have now in November, and Jim, you can help us out, both of Dustin's projects coming.
Correct. I think today we received the application for Raymond Village.
Right.
But that is coming back as an amendment. They're adding more units and adding more land into that application. I sent you all an email this afternoon feeling that that needs to take a step back. It needs to be kind of I know we have a lot of information that's duplicate, but it has to come back now as a sketch plan because you haven't had an opportunity. You just can't do that. You just can't expand it and just say, okay, we're just going to pick it up and keep going. We need to go back. We'll have to have a new acceptance for completeness, sketch plan, and public hearing. And I think we're going to have some noise from the public hearing side. And then as well, preliminary and final for the subdivision.
Right. I think
And the
do
question
agree,
is
but-
how do we want to bundle that? Because, we could do the sketch plan, the completeness in a hearing, and then we can come back and do the public hearing in December or something.
Well, the first thing we need is a motion that is going to rescind the preliminary.
Yep, exactly.
And state that it's been a major revision to the project requiring sketch plan review. So
Correct.
that's
Yep.
our first step.
Yep, that's your first step.
So why do we do that now? I mean, we don't need really Dustin. Do we need?
I would wait,
Because otherwise he's not gonna know what to expect.
yeah. I
don't-
guess he has formally applied for that, correct? That came in today?
What I sent you was.
Yeah, okay, so he has applied, so yeah, I guess we can give him that decision.
Yeah, I think that'll just move us
Yep.
all along.
He also did send in the R.N. Woolley property too.
Right. Right, yeah, we'll get to that one next.
One at a time. Okay, so, what is it? That's the Raymond Hills, right? Yeah. So I'd move the modification submitted for the Raymond Hills LLC.
Raymond Village.
Raymond Hills or Raymond Village?
What is it?
It's Raymond Hills on here.
Oh, Raymond Hills, okay.
For the Raymond Hills application constitutes a major revision, which will require both sketch plan review and public hearing prior to approval.
I'd
Well,
second that.
Second? Okay. Well, Kevin, you all right? Did you hear all that, Kevin? All those in favor? Okay, so you can let Dustin know that he's back at sketch plan for that one.
Okay, so
All right.
then at the next meeting, that will be on for completeness and sketch plan.
Right.
Okay, and then we'll schedule the formal public hearing, most likely in December.
Correct.
Okay,
Yep.
perfect.
Okay, so now we do need to talk about the November.
You have another
meeting, though.
application coming in November for the Boulder Bend subdivision, which is the Willie one.
Right.
So that one's coming back for final.
Okay.
So should we or can we let him know that we're still at .47 on 2 lots instead of .5?
Yep.
And plus, the open space land hasn't been adjusted as I think it should be according to that same language on page 128.
Yeah, they have a ton of open space, so I'm not worried about that, but I think it just needs to be, as always, we just need it documented on the plan.
Right.
Yeah.
Because there's a big, huge piece of open space in there in the middle of that resource protected area.
Okay, so my concern now is the amount of projects and what we have scheduled for, that are built up for November.
Well, the sketch plan will go pretty quick. It's just a sketch plan.
Yeah, it's 45 minutes.
Yep.
And Jim, don't forget too that Port
Oh, you
Harbor
got that
is
Port
on
Harbor
with
one.
Mary
Oh,
Costigan.
Right.
Right, yep.
So we have the legal training, we have the Harbor Marine discussion. I don't know how long, you know, we have 2 lawyers involved, this could take a long time. We have Dustin's 2 projects.
That's a lot.
That's, yeah, we're not gonna get all that in. That's,
So I guess we can ask Dustin, you know, he's got 2 projects, he submitted them, he's the last 2 in the door, so we can ask him which one that he would prefer. I don't know what the timing is of those.
yeah,
I don't think we can get through both of them, we might get through one, but we won't get, I mean, we can put them on, I guess we could do that, we could put them on there. If we don't get to them, I mean, we always have that standard that if we shut down, we shut down, we're not taking up new business after a certain period of time.
Yeah, and then if
Then-
we go through the other stuff quickly,
Right.
he's here for both of them.
Right.
It's the same guy, so.
right.
So I mean, we could just say if we don't have new orders of business started by
Yeah.
9:30, we're not gonna take it up, because we just won't have time to get through it.
Right.
But we can make them aware of that ahead of time. It's just a matter of how we decide to stack the schedule, I guess.
Yeah, see, that's the other thing. We don't want the lawyer, we don't want to eat up the lawyer here until 9:30.
No, no,
so
the lawyer, they're in the queue first, as far as I'm concerned.
Right.
They're first in the queue.
They're, and then the training?
I guess the question is with the training, do you want to do the training as like a workshop ahead of time, earlier?
Oh,
With like 6 or 6:30?
Yeah, that sounds
Well, we
good.
have to check the time with our
We got to check with the attorney, but does that make sense to kind of treat that almost like a workshop?
that does make a lot of sense.
And I don't know what he's expending for time. I mean, those,
It's Mary's doing the training and then the Port Harbor thing, so
Yeah.
she's gonna be here for both.
yeah.
Okay, so Mary does it about a half hour.
Yeah, so
Half hour,
when we
40
say
minutes.
6:30, if we go 6:30
Okay,
for the training,
yeah,
and then we can start the, you know, if the training runs over a little bit, fine, but we can just, a regular meeting could start at 7, but if the training runs into that a little bit, that's fine. It's the same cast of characters basically
Right.
involved. And then we can have the other 2 on the agenda, but just let Dustin know that if time runs late because of if these items, that he will be, just like the training, he will move to the next agenda. That's typically how most towns do it.
yeah, I'm just wondering how, if we want the lawyer presentation on the training with the room filled for this application.
Well, no, that's what I'm saying, if you do it as a workshop at 6:30,
They're gonna be here at
well,
6:45.
we can do it at 6.
Right.
We can tell them they can't come in the room until.
No, it's true, we could have the
we're done.
sign.
They can
Yeah.
stay outside.
Right.
Yeah,
Even if
Just
it's
let 'em in for the
7:05,
meeting.
7:10.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, what do you guys think?
I think that sounds great.
You? That sounds good? Work for you, Mark?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Kevin, you finished your dinner by that time? You okay? Dishes are done?
He's always smiling, I don't know.
Because he doesn't have to wear a mask, yeah.
Yeah, you should wear a mask. Come on,
We should
Kevin.
make him wear a mask.
exactly.
Yeah.
So 6:30 will be the training, 6 to 7 will be the training, and then we'll do the regular meeting at 7 with the is it Port Harbor?
How about, okay, why don't we go with 6:15
Okay.
for
Just
the
give us a
meeting?
little bit of
Yeah,
a-
give us a little bit of a breathing room
Yep.
between. And if you guys are talking with Mary, just to confirm, I'm pretty sure she does it in half an hour.
I think we would be okay.
Yeah,
I think so too. Okay,
And then
I will put a call into her.
thanks, Andy.
And then I guess from your standpoint, once we get through Port Harbor, is there a preference in the order? I mean, they both came, the last 2 came at the same time, so.
Well, he did send Raymond Hills first.
Okay.
And then a couple hours later, I was actually on the phone with you when the second one came
Then
in.
we'll hold that order then. That makes it easy.
Yep.
But we'll let him know in advance that it could be delayed to the next meeting because we do have
Full agenda.
we could have a full agenda and it could run over.
Right.
And that's how all the towns I work in handle it that way, that then they just pick up the order at the next meeting in the same manner.
Yep.
But it will be a lengthy night. The other thing too, I wanted just to remind you, it's getting to be that time of year again where if we have any ordinance.
Next thing on the list.
I think we should schedule a workshop for December, probably.
Okay. A normal meeting workshop or a different?
Yeah.
You think
same
projects?
Discussion on the.
Okay.
Yeah.
I do have though, I thought we were going to actually, I've got two things to put on that list. One of them is, where there's actually, I've been holding off on but I think it's important that we do kind of try to quantify it a little bit better than in our ordinances, and that's the site, what impacts,
Visual impact.
the visual impact, and how can we get that a little bit better defined
Okay.
into the ordinance?
And did he send that to you as well? He sent me a lengthy document from.
Yeah, it's pretty thorough. I think my concern with that document is it's way too specific.
Right. Yeah, I think we gotta make it something that we can kind of keep it, I don't wanna say layman's terms, but we gotta kind of keep it simple.
Yep.
Simple but effective.
And I will forward that to you guys. I have been holding off because I really didn't want to have it mixed up with our harbor marine. But I will, when the time, I'll forward it. It's a good document. There's a lot of good stuff in it to read. I think anyway. Did you guys read it?
Yep.
Okay.
It has a lot of stuff. It has a lot of stuff.
Yeah, a lot of stuff. The other thing that I think is worth, I don't know if it's worth looking at or not, again, is did we call them mother-in-law apartments or?
In-law apartment.
In-law apartments.
Yep. It's accessory, under our definitions, it's accessory apartment.
Right.
Accessory dwelling unit.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I just marked really quick history. It used to be that it had to be, and you guys tell me if I'm wrong here, but it used to be it had to be attached to the house. About 2 years, maybe 3 years ago, we broke it off and we said it could be a separate structure. And now I'm wondering whether or not that was the right approach based upon how it looks on the property itself and whether or not it actually fits into the community, that we have two small houses instead of one, what it does to the garages, what it does to the driveways, what it does to the clearing of the land. So I think I would like to at least put that on the list if we have time to look at that. Maybe we might want to take a step backwards on that. You guys, yeah, just to look at. I mean, I'm not. That's the only two things that I had that
Do you have
I wanted to start our
those?
list.
Oh, yeah.
You really?
Yeah.
You have things on the list, right?
Yep, we've got marijuana, that's the biggest one. We've been tasked by, or you guys have been tasked by the select board to review that.
Okay.
Solar, Jim's got something put together already, right?
Yep.
And then I'd like to get into boat storage.
Bulk
So,
storage?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Boat storage.
It's not really
Boat,
defined in our ordinance.
Bulk?
Boat, boat.
Boat.
Boat, okay.
Yeah, boat storage it's one of those things that with the number of boats that we've seen, I've seen in other communities too, there's a lot of private boat yards that are popping up, that people just storing boats on lots. And I just know that they're just everywhere right now, and it's
Yeah,
going to be a little unruly
get on
out
it
there.
now, yeah.
Okay.
And those can have a pretty big implication. I think there's some smaller
Couple
things.
little small cleanup things that we found. But those are the big ones.
Yeah, and the marijuana one is basically going to be drafted from, coming to us, it'll be drafted, right?
Maybe that's something we talked to Mary about too at the workshop. She could give us an update on that.
Is this recreation or is this medical?
They were looking at both, I believe.
Do we want to think at all about solar installations in terms of views, in terms of like from Sebago Lake, or I know that Naples has part of their ordinance where they have to, the installation of the solar project, they have to make sure it's never viewable from the lakes to protect property value, I guess, that kind of
Yeah,
thing.
that falls under the DEP criteria as well. That's why when you saw your first application, they included that visual assessment for this one. The other thing that they didn't discuss this evening is part of the PUC changes, is my understanding is, right now, any solar facility from 1 or 0.1 to 5 megawatts falls into one category of review. Anything over 5 to 25 falls into another, then you have another. Because there was such an onslaught of this 0 to 5, they're now going to change that to 0 to like 1.99, and then anything from 2 to 5 will fall. They're going to up the ante as far as what the requirements are going to be for those PUC applications. So that's kind of another reason you're seeing the surge for the end of the year, because they take effect January 1st. So that's why you're seeing a surge of these kind of coming through in all the towns right now, because the PUC is changing up the game a little bit. So with that, I do have some draft language that I've shared, and we can share that in December if you want. That I've just kind of melded what's going on in some other towns that are a little ahead of us with that. There are some really complex ones, and then there are some real basic ones. I just kind of try to keep it on the basic side. I don't think we need to get too deep into it, because I got a sense that these are like cell towers. There's going to be a run, and then it's going to quiet down for a little bit. But if we have something on the books that we've learned, especially this was a good prep, because if there's anything we learned from this, you know, we can apply it to the ordinance as well. But I think overall, I mean, I think the site plan ordinance did a good job as far as collecting and holding that to a certain standard.
Yep.
But there's some specifics. And it more or less has to do with the overhead underground thing too. You know, I know, you know, we're in a rural setting, so we can live with the overhead, but there may be some times with that, back to the visual assessment, that may not work. And that visual assessment may also apply, especially when they're up on hillsides and mountaintops, that, you know, it is a sea of black squares.
Okay, so Mark, just for, so you know what we're talking about, we do the ordinance every year. We run through the ordinances and come up with the changes for the, and so we backtrack from the town meeting to the time frame where we have to have the public hearing, to the time frame that we have to send it to the selectmen, then the public hearing, 30 days notice for the public hearing to have where we have to have the ordinances final. So we're kind of, we always get kind of a little bit of a time crunch right in the end. So we have a prioritized list and we work from that.
Sure. And again, if you find, and it's a time to clean up little clerical errors or anything like that that you see, or a definition that may be a little outdated, you know, and it may have come up during the course of the year. We try to put it in the parking lot and grab it this time of year, and you know, we got to start in December, because by the time we do our public hearings, it's March, and March we usually have to have the draft in, because the town meetings in June, and we have to have it all drafted up by April. So time moves quickly, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Should we get a book for Mark? Ordinances?
Yeah.
Well, I guess that's another question, is when is our whole new ordinance going to be compiled?
Probably around June.
I guess we'll get you.
They started in July, I think about a year or so.
Yeah, they're colorizing the old ordinances, so you'll have it'll be a new format when the new ordinance come out, and they'll grab everything that we've done, because right now,
There's so many revisions.
the revisions aren't, you know, revisions are there, but they're not in the booklet.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah. All right, anything else? Great.
Move to adjourn?
Second?
Second.
Thank you.
Good job, Greg.
Go home, Kevin.
Hold and go.